Hello, everybody. I'm the okayest bassist, as it says on my shirt, and this is the Basics, Volume 7. Um, I've been sick, so my voice is mostly gone. So if I'm quiet, let me know. I'm going to do my best to not cough into the microphone every day, every second of today. Um, Feel free to drop a comment. Happy to know someone's here. It shows one is viewing. Um, Again, just voices down. We do have a volunteer instructor for today. He said he's going to try and drop in so that he can teach us all how to set up for a sound check. That'll be Dyno Dan, the bass man. Um, he's going to hop in. He does sound. If I remember right, he does sound at his church. So he'll be a good guy for letting us know how to set up. One thing you can do is definitely make sure that your bass is in tune before you start trying to do a lesson, or learn a lesson, or just always make sure your bass is in tune. It's a good best practice. So he told me he's gonna try and be in here as close to a quarter after as possible, if not sooner. I've already sent out the link, but I don't see him here yet. If your tuner does not like picking up a B string, just fret the fifth, find the E, and there you go. So, again, this is the Basics with the okayest bassist. Sorry. This is a lesson set slash live podcast geared towards the new or long term but not good bassist. Um, have all sorts of different lessons. We've done 6 different ones so far, anything from reading slash playing with master sheet. Uh, we've talked about purchasing and selling gear. We have many lessons more that will be coming. We had Bully the Kid on, who did a lesson for us about slap, where best to play, how best to hold your hand, how to do where you have a minimal motion of wrist movement rather than trying to wiggle your hand and arm and shoulders and whole body and everything. So we have a few lessons. We have more lined out. The fun part is going to be getting someone who can teach that is available. I know the 5 p.m. Central Time on Sunday isn't the best for everybody. We're going to try and get some stuff worked out so we can do more of that. But again, right now, today's lesson is supposed to be about setting up for a sound check. This might all get immediately contradicted, but I can tell you what I do whenever we have ours at church. Excuse me again. Of course, there's what I just said. Make sure your instrument's in tune. Make sure your instrument's in tune. You don't want to be out of tune and then try to play, because then it won't sound good. Another good thing to make sure for a sound check is there so you can get your settings dialed in the way you want them. Then the, whatever you want to call them, the soundboard person, the audio engineer, whatever, their job is to make sure that what you're playing works well in and with the room, specifically in the room with people. You can practice all you want on an empty stage, or a stage just with, your bandmates. But once there are people in the room, the acoustics of that room inherently change. You have more soft surfaces. You're going to have hum from background noise, a general just murmuring hum. So all of those things change it. If you're me, the way you go for a sound check is you make sure your volume is all the way up and you're in passive mode, and then that's it. That's all I do. I don't do any of the fancy EQ stuff. As far as church goes, I know that the normal bassist uses, I think it's a tone hammer. It's just a box amp, but it has the direct line out into the floor. If it was me, it would just be a direct box. All I would have is a DI, but I don't normally get to play bass at church, so I leave what the bassist has set up. That way he's less upset that I jumped in and played bass on the days that he was gone. So that's what they have. All I do, even when I play at home, I have the Spark 2. It's a 50 watt modeling amplifier. I don't have the amplifier effects turned on. It's just the closest thing to a DI that I can get. I actually really like the sound that comes out of my Focusrite Scarlett when this is turned on and plugged in, because there are no effects. It's literally a DI, and I think that sounds great. Sorry. So that's what I do for a sound check. I make sure the volume on the instrument's all the way up, so I'm giving them everything that I can, and then they can adjust whatever it is that they need. The reason I always have mine at full volume is quite simple. If I'm at full volume, there's no way I'm going to be able to make an accidental increase, even though bass is the most important instrument in an entire band. Once they've adjusted everything for a nice balanced, equal setup for the mix that's being projected into the room, I don't want to be at 3/4 half volume and then all of a sudden hand slips and I hit the volume and I crank it, and now you're redlining and making it sound bad. You might end up getting distortion that you don't want. All that good, well, all that not good stuff. So your mileage may vary. Perhaps you're one of the people who actually, sets EQs, in which case I know there are some people that change their EQ for every song. If you're one of those, then good for you. I'm happy for you. You can actually make your stuff different. I don't want to do my stuff different. I just want to do it as well as I can, which isn't that great. So all the extra bells and whistles don't really do much for me. But that's what I can tell you. I'm sure Dyno Dan's going to be able to be like, okay, everything Travis said is wrong. Don't do any of it except tune your bass. I don't care what Dyno Dan says. Tune your bass. It's important. That's about all that I have as far as setting up for sound check. I could continue trying to stall for time, but I don't want to. So anyway, here's Wonderwall. Ha ha. Just kidding. I don't know how to play Wonderwall. I don't even know if I've heard the song. I've probably heard it, but I don't know. So yeah, here's Seven Nation Army. Hold on just a moment. Apparently my wife has decided to just creep on the stream without streaming it, so she's just standing here. I don't know why. Hello, Carolina. You having fun tonight? Happy to see somebody's here. Hopefully you're having fun. We're going to learn about how to set up for a sound check by Dyno Dan, the bass man, whenever he can pull up. If you couldn't tell or if you hadn't already heard, I'm sick. So, hooray. Do I get a thumbs up from the iPad? No. Okay. Maybe it only does that on StreamYard. I don't know. I'm liking Restream. It's working well. I actually have audio from the bass, so for what it's worth of an okay player, it's a plus. So, I'm going to keep at work. Oh, shame on you. Slacking, listening to me. That's fine. I don't care. I won't tell on you. It's not like I know who to tell anyway. So I won't tell on you. Anyway, so I was just randomly playing songs until I see the Dyno Dan pulls up. I'm going to practice more on this slap that Bully taught us. There you go. That's as much slap as I know. So, hooray for that. I guess I'm just going to keep playing random crap until I see the Dyno Dan's here. Is this Dyno Dan I see appearing? Dyno. Boom. We now have a live
Check one.
Dyno Dan.
Check one. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, you do? Sweet. All right. Okay.
So tell them who you are, Dyno, and I already told them what we're doing. Introduce yourself again.
You think if I flip this camera, it'll wig out on us?
I don't know. You can try. You talking about the mirror?
Just talking about like the screen. It won't
Give
flip.
it a shot.
All right. Something up with your voice? Your voice sounds a little.
I'm sick. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's a great time.
Cool. I'm Dyno Dan. I've been a sound man here at church for 15, 20 years. About two years ago, a year and a half ago, I decided to pick the bass up and start playing the bass. So, Mr. OK here, Okayist. What's your first name? Travis? Travis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we not say your first name on this?
I don't care.
Okay.
I've been called way worse. I'll tell you that.
Okay. So Travis was hosting these little workshops or little BASSics. I love the name of that. That's so creative. I'm from California. I live in California, so don't hold that against me. And so I offered to do a basic on how to prepare to do a sound check and maybe what equipment you might need to bring or you should bring and things like that, just to help out the sound man and yourself get the best sound possible wherever you might be doing a gig or wherever you might be playing or even just jamming out. Like there's certain things you can do to just help yourself have a better time, get a clearer sound and things like that. So starting with the basics, obviously everybody's here got a bass of some type. You might be working with amplifier. You might not be working with an amplifier. So I'm just going to kind of run you through what we do here. And then if Travis if you have any questions or you want to bring up a certain topic, just let me know, okay? There it is. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it's not doing the effects.
Okay. All right. So basically, you come in, you're gonna play. Let's say you're just gonna play with at a church or at a local venue, and you're gonna come in and do your first sound check, or you're gonna come in and practice. Let's say you're gonna just practice in a live situation. You're gonna want to know what kind of things you can bring and use, and what kind of things you can't. Some stages, places, they don't want any amps on stage. You're going to do something all in ear. And if that's the case, it's best for you to be prepared for that rather than getting to the venue and then realizing you don't have the things it's going to take to get that done. So the simple things for an in-ear type setup, most places, they're going to have some kind of way to get you the sound. So you'll need some kind of way to get from that device to your head. So I use something like what Travis is wearing right here, just a over the ear headphones that has a mini jack, and then I always keep a converter to a 1/4 inch just in case I need to convert that mini jack to a 1/4 inch. I'll show you my pair right here. One of the reasons why I like this pair is because it's what they're called the open over the ear. Yeah, there you go. So these are Philips. They run about 75, 80 bucks, but they're open back. So not only do I hear the feed coming into the speaker here, I also hear the stage sound also. And for me, when I play with a drummer, that's really important. I don't like to feel just all enclosed with just sound from the earphones. I like to hear stage presence. Um, I like to hear my amp. But if this is the case where you couldn't use an amp, you want a good set. Most people at bigger churches or professionals are using these little in-ear, really low profile stuff, which you can find online. I don't I don't care how I look on stage. I just want to be able to hear and be comfortable. So I just use something like this. Um, and so it's
He can say he doesn't care how he looks because he's so good looking. He just knows he's gonna look good no matter what. That's not fair for those of us less well endowed. I'm just saying.
okay. So so a pair of headphones, in ears. Um, this will usually hook up into a little box, and that box will have a mini jack or a 1/4 inch jack on it where you could plug in, and then they'll usually have like a monitor person where you could tell them what you want in your ears, or like here we have an iPad device that we give the people to use so they can mix their own in ears with this. So it's really convenient. Um, so that's to start with. You need to find out whether or not you're going to be able to use stage, and then what kind of monitoring system you're going to use. That way you could come prepared. Now, if it's a place that's just going to use a floor wedge, then I really doubt they're going to have an issue with you also bringing a little amp or an amp on stage to where you can hear yourself. Um, but it wouldn't surprise
What's
me.
a floor wedge?
So what they call a floor wedge is basically a speaker on the floor that is a monitor that's facing you. They call it a wedge because it's the shape of a wedge. So
Gotcha.
the angle is looking up at you from the floor. And then
We have
usually,
those. We just call them monitors.
okay, there you
We're
go.
just boring. We don't have cool names.
So usually they'll use that to pump a feed up to you, or you can hear the mix you need to hear to play. There's a couple of connection types you need to be familiar with. One is a mini. We call this just a mini 3.5 mini or mini, a 1/4 inch, or what we call an instrument cable. And then also an XLR cable, also known as a mic cable. The XLR cable looks something like this. And this is going to be the cable. There's the male. There's the female. I think we're still allowed to say that. Okay. So this is how you would send your mix to the front of house, to the mixing board, through another thing we're going to unravel here is a DI. A DI. And what a DI does is it takes your signal and it carries it to the motherboard, to the main board, the sound board, where he can now take your sound and kick it out to the front of house. So DIs were here forever. When I wasn't playing music, we just had in-house DIs. They were really simple DIs. They aren't necessarily bass DIs. I kind of feel sad because we use these forever for the bass. Could you hear all that still?
Not really.
Oh,
no.
It means my microphone.
I couldn't.
Okay.
So
So
it shows it's on.
yeah, maybe I think just my speaker not doing the right thing. Anyways, so this is just a basic DI right here. You got your XLR, and then you got your input with the 1/4 inch. And these guys, this is a pretty good brand and stuff, but it's not necessarily a good bass DI. So I recommend you have one of your own to use, because some places you go and they get really cheap on these, and they get like $30 ones off Amazon, and they're just not going to give you a good bass sound. So you could purchase something like this guy here. This is made by the same company, Radial, but this is also, it specifically says DI for basses and keyboards. And it's just a little box, again, XLR, round lift, input through, input and through. And these guys run about 60 bucks or something like that, and they're really good. Or a lot of times your preamp or your box that you use for a preamp will have this similar type of DI attached to it. So for instance, this guy here, this is an Ampeg STG DI that's got a preamp on it. It's got cab sims and everything on it. It's got an overdrive on it, and it's got, like I said, it's got the DI. So if you had this and you brought this with you, you would cover a lot of ground on what you might need to play in any scenario. So my suggestion is you get a good DI. These are about $350 or something like that, depending, but you find them all the time for $250 or something like that used. Or you could just go with the regular Stage Bug DI. That's a lot cheaper, but it's not going to give you the preamp and all that kind of good stuff that you could play with. So again, you could show up and you could use what they have at the house, and I call the house the place you're performing at. However, that's not going to necessarily be the best equipment for a bass. Um, so when you show up and you find out where you're playing, it's best to arrive. I like to arrive early, especially if they let you and somebody's maybe sound checking before you. I like to go in and just sit in the crowd and listen and see what the other bass player might sound like, see what the acoustics in the room sound like, because all that stuff's going to matter on how you want to use that preamp on your bass. Rooms like the one I have here, it's a super acoustic sounding room. It's a lot of bouncing off the walls and things like that here. So, this might be a room where I might back off the bass some, add a little more mids, and then let the front of house guys do their thing. So, it's best to show up early, listen to the room. If you can't listen to the room for some reason, if no one's in front of you, then show up, set up your stuff, go through whatever you need to go through before you start practicing. Make sure all your equipment works. These are all the little things so when it's time to do the sound check, you're not finding things out at the last minute. I got a bad cable. I got this, I got that, things like that. Another big thing that's going to help your sound guy out is if you have your pedals dialed in for the most part before you show up, if you're a pedal user. So you're not trying to figure out your tone, from scratch when you show up to play. You want to kind of get a roundabout place where you want to start, and then when you show up, you can listen to the acoustics in the room and make some small adjustments, and then go from there. Once you've started the sound check, everything is good. It's really good to communicate with your monitor person, if you have a monitor person, what you need in the mix, and not wait until the end of the sound check to say, oh yeah, by the way, I could use a little bit more of this. That drives sound people crazy. They want to hear communication to give you what you need for you to sound your best. So communicate as much as you can with your monitor person or with the sound people to help facilitate you. And then again, once the sound check has happened and it's completed, and let's say there's a half hour or 45 minutes before you're going to play, it's best not to start messing with things then. So you've done the sound check, you've played through your songs, very little adjustments should be made after that. And none to
I
the
mean, whenever you're done doing a sound check, I shouldn't go and double my volume and max everything out so that everyone only hears me.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that when someone's doing the sound check, like I was saying before you got on, when I do them at church, I mean, I do everything in passive, so I don't change an EQ, and they have, I think it's an Aguilar tone hammer is what the bassist has for his preamp and DI box combined. I said I typically just max volume. That way I know I'm sending everything I can, and then if there is an accident of changing something, like my hand slips, I'm only turning it down, not risking causing a red line.
Yeah. Um, that's pretty good um, mode of operation. Um, so if you're permitted to use an amp, and that's how you prefer to play with an amp on stage, another good thing is that when I set my amp gain, I always set it with max coming out of my guitar, ran through my pedal system, and then usually the preamp on my pedal is where I'll turn up uh, the preamp to about 50% on my pedal, and then I'll go to to the amp and I'll start turning up the gain with everything else off. And when I start clipping the gain, I back off and I play as hard as I would play until I don't clip it no more. So I know I'm right there at the threshold of getting my signal to my amp. And then I start bringing in the volume on the amp. And then it's important, and I learned this a lot here at this local church, because my amps, they all sound great to me where I'm at. But if I want to be heard out there, I could do it with my amps. But if I also want to be heard on the live stream, well, I can't take up all the volume with my amps. I have to send some volume to the front of house in order for them to use me in the live stream. Our live stream is ran where it's called a mix plus. It takes the mix of the house and then you can tweak it a little bit using a mix plus button. So, but if I don't have anything in the house, there's nothing to tweak. There's nothing to add. So
Yeah.
that's something to also mind. I don't know if uh, you're when you are if you are being if you're in a church type setting or a setting that they're also live streaming, it's very important to know if the person that's using your signal is able to get your signal to the live stream with or without putting you in the house. So, and if they are, it's important that you know that that 300 to 400 frequency is probably the best frequency to have boosted on your bass to be heard in the live stream. The majority of the people listening to live streams and these recorded videos and things like that, they're on a cell phone or a computer, a laptop. They don't have big, nice speakers to hear your, below 300 frequencies. So if you want to be heard, what I usually do is I have the privilege here where I can tweak my own EQ in the house. I'll bump up in the 300 to 400 area. I'll give myself a little bump. That way I know I'll be heard in the live stream, pretty well. So, so once you're on stage and you got your amp going, and then they start doing the house, what I always ask the guys, like, hey, I could back off my amp if you want to put me more in the front of the house. And then I'll usually do that until I'm at a threshold where I'm getting the the minimum amount of my amp that I need to play, and then they're boosting me in the front to compensate. So it's not, at times, and I deal with a lot of electric guitar players where this is a big thing. They want their electric guitar amps to be ripping. And I'm like, just understand, if you're ripping back here and that's leaking up there, I'm not going to be able to put you out there that much because there's just too much volume going on. So that's something to be mindful also, is sometimes you got to sacrifice the sound you're hearing to give the people listening to you a better sound.
So on the stage sound versus you're also you talked about the monitor, the in ear or over the ear monitor. One thing I've noticed, one thing I've noticed at church, we have a live stream, but we don't have anyone who knows sound well. Like, it's basically system got installed. One guy was given a crash course and he has to remember his crash course to teach other people. So it's very diluted. But I've noticed they just use the direct feed that comes to the mix board straight in, and it is, if you haven't experienced it, it's quite a shock of what the difference is that you hear in the room versus the sterility of just the signal. Like, the sound people that we have, they don't put on a monitor. They don't listen to the feed to hear, is the feed sounding as good as it does in the house? Because if you hear, like, if you go to my church's live streams on the music, things sound a lot more sterile. They sound a lot more flat. than they do in the room, because of course in the room they're boosting music to be heard over singers so that the singers are part of it, not the only part. But then the live stream, the feed that comes out, of course, is way different because they're gearing it against the noise of the room. They're gearing it against all the soft surfaces of chairs and people. Um,
Yeah.
so
And the,
I think that would add to your point of the open ear monitors that you have. You're going to hear what's on your stage, but like you said, the difference between what you're sending and that they can use versus what you're hearing from your own amp makes just as big a difference as what they have on their feed. Because if you've got yourself so you sound awesome and loud and you're the biggest, baddest, most important person in the mix that you hear because of your amp, or because in your monitor you have yourself cranked but all the other stuff turned down, you don't know what's going out. You don't know if they're hearing any bass in the song at all because you may have it so cranked that it
yeah.
sounds like you're the star of the show, and anyone listening online goes, I think that guy forgot to turn on his bass because there's nothing.
No, definitely. Definitely. There is a, you could give yourself a false reading of what it sounds like by having your amp too loud. Um, yeah, one reason for the inconsistency between the house mix and the live stream is the live stream is dead sound. It's, you turn it, it's dead. Where your house, your wherever you're at has acoustics. So your acoustic mix, that's why we're using this Mix Plus, because the acoustic mix is going to get you close, but you always need to tweak it. So if you take
Yeah.
something like an acoustic guitar, well, acoustic guitar in a venue, you have the sound that's going through the wire, but you have the natural sound of the guitar. Well, on a live stream, you don't have the natural sound of the guitar. You're only the sound on the wire.
Mm-hmm.
So in a
Yeah.
venue, that's going to be a lot lower than, let's say, a keyboard that's only using a wire. That's going to have to be boosted way up because there's no acoustic sound to it. So on your live
Yeah.
stream, the keyboard is going to seem really loud,
Yeah.
and your acoustic guitar is going to seem really buried.
We have that same thing with our piano because we have a grand piano. So, of course, it fills the room all on its own when the lid's open. It's made for that. It's a grand piano. It's made to be heard, and we have it mic'd up, and the sound of the piano is way different with those two dynamic mics on the high and low end than it is what you're hearing in an entire room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and your bass will be the same thing if you're sitting at home playing your bass with your amp, whether it's on the floor angled up or whether it's on a, like in my case, it's right on top of my piano. Other people, it might be on the floor facing away from them. You're listening to that sound. That's way different than what the person in the next room hears. That's way different than what the person who's sitting in the same room on the other end of the room is hearing, because your natural acoustics, your speakers make one of the largest changes in your line of sound. I mean, your pickups, the wood of which it's made, that's going to your the wood of which your instrument, especially an electric instrument, it's going to change what you hear acoustically, might change things like sustain, but at the end of the day, it's your pickups are taking that vibration of a metal string and sending it. Your instrument is changing that sound, but what you're hearing in the house coming out of the main speakers is way different just based on those speakers alone. Where are you in relation to those speakers? Are you right front center in front of a speaker? Is it a whole bank of wedge speakers that you have that are facing the ceiling for refractory acoustics? Is it they're facing straight towards the people? Are you in the corner of the room? Are you in the center of the room?
Yeah.
All of those things make that difference, but that live feed, like you said, I mean, it's completely dead air. There, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. If you stand in the middle of a quiet room, there's still noise.
Yeah, for sure.
If you have no audio coming to you at all, you're deaf. Those are two completely different things. And it's and that I think one of the things that's really hard for sound guys like you is you're dealing with both of those at the same time. I have this room that's full of people. They have some chatter going. There's a general hum of bodies in a place. But then you're also fighting. I have an electric signal, and that's all it is. I have electrical pulses coming through wires coming to me. I have to make it sound good in the room, but if you're also streaming or if you're recording it, you have to counteract that dead space, and it's not like you've got two people on two soundboards getting the same signal and one's running a live stream while the other's running a live show.
Well,
You've got,
some churches have that. Mine doesn't, but
well, yeah, I'm saying us. We don't. My church has, we when we built our addition, they bought this huge soundboard. Well, it's smaller than the other one, but it has like multiple banks that save all the settings, and
nice.
like it's just nuts because of course, I mean, just one set of singers versus a different set of singers, you got to change. Some people sing real loud and try to eat the microphone, and some people try to hold the microphone 3 feet from their face and
Right.
yell at it, and some people try to whisper the whole time and not be heard because they really don't want to be heard while they're singing, but yet they're still a singer. So
Right.
you got to figure that one out. Or during sound check, they'll da, 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 and then they get up to the actual thing to sing da 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 da. And now it's like, whoa.
Right.
Like you said about turning up your volume, you gotta practice the way you're gonna perform
Definitely.
because you're gonna throw everybody off otherwise.
So another thing about the DI, a lot of these combo amps now have DIs on them too. So
Mm-hmm.
I know
Yep.
I have this little Ampeg Rocket combo amp. It's got a DI on it. I don't know if it's any good. I haven't used it, but you do have that option with the simple combo amp also. You could use the DI coming out of there, and usually there's a post or pre for if it's got some kind of a EQ on that where you can send a
So,
clean signal.
what would you say? And I'm sure it's a simple answer, but is there a difference between a DI and a line out?
Well,
Because I understand DI to just mean direct interface, meaning
right,
that
right. It's changing.
signals going straight with.
It's changing your line level signal into a you know. So the direct out is the same thing.
Okay. So if you had, say, like, I don't think the Spark has like an XLR line out. I think it has the quarter inch maybe as a line out.
Uh, the
But
Spark 40 does.
oh, I have the two, but I'm sure it's the same.
The
But
two does. I
so
believe the two does.
okay, okay. So say someone shows up, just to go on a really silly side quest here. Say you have someone who shows up and has one of those little in-ear like headphone amps, like AMP and Sono did that.
Hmm.
You could use that, and you could run. I mean, it takes some adapters, but you could run like a standard 1/8 inch auxiliary cable to a quarter, and if you needed to switch that to an XLR, feasibly you could use that tiny little amp that's made for headphones. It's still sending a signal. I mean, I would suspect that would even be able to work as long as you can get. I'm sure it's not great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you show up and if you show up to a venue and they're like, we got a hole in the ground in the floor here for an XLR cable, you're supposed to bring the rest. I mean, feasibly, if you have, like you said, a quarter inch to XLR adapter, and if you have an auxiliary cable with a 1/8 to quarter inch adapter, feasibly, if you just have those things in your bag so you can practice, that would work with one of those headphone amps.
I, I I would think so. I would think so. I'm not sure if there's because you are changing from a uh, you are changing the different. I don't know if it's the strength of the signal path or what, but there is some kind of conversion that happens between the 1/4 inch, the DI, and then the XLR cable.
Sure.
So that's why my first thing is like find out what they have. you know, call somebody,
Research what you need.
talk.
Show up
Yes,
prepared.
be prepared because you know the we're
That's what Scar said in The Lion King. Be prepared.
be prepared. Um, yeah. So I have way too much of this equipment. Um, you know, I have it's made by MXR. It's a real small preamp, and it's nice because it's got a DI on it. You know, it's small. You could put it in the front of your gig bag, and that could suffice in an emergency. And it's got a preamp on it, so there's a lot of
But
different
those
ways.
still require. Does it require power?
That one does, yes, but like that stage
Okay.
bug I showed you, that's a passive based
Okay.
DI.
I'm about to
Um,
say because Bully had said something about he showed up to a place once and they were supposed to have equipment, but they didn't, and he happened to have the Trace Elliott Elf,
mhm.
the just amp, but I think it requires either a 9 or 18 volt or something for power. I don't
Yeah,
think it's passive.
yeah,
So that would be another thing if you have an active system, because those require power. I don't think they make any that just run on a battery. I've seen some that have like a 9-volt slot, but I think they still require AC power to maintain them.
right.
Unless of course now, so you would recommend that, again, these are geared towards the beginner, so your recommendation would be as a backup in case you show up to a venue, try to find a decent cheap passive DI converter so you can go from instrument cable to XLR.
Made for
That way,
bass.
if you show up,
The cheapest I
made
would
for
go
bass.
is that stage bug, the passive
Okay.
stage
And
bug.
you'd said that's like 60?
Yeah, I believe it's like 60 bucks,
That's not bad.
and it's
That's
it's
not
well
bad.
built. It's a well built piece of equipment. So um, that's that's definitely the cheapest I'd go. I've seen some other ones in doing the research. You know, they have all these goes into the thousands of dollars just for the DI. So
Well,
um,
it's like the people who get the wireless in ear monitors and they cost, whatever, hundreds of dollars. And then AMP put that video about one, I think it was Lakato, has like a plug in, use an auxiliary cable plug in transmitter or something like that. And it was, I mean, the latency wasn't awesome, but I think he just used it for recording, not for actual monitor, but
oh,
said that
okay.
it worked. So
Yeah.
I think you said it's called a stage bug?
Yes. It's called Stage Bug. It's made by Radial.
Is that one word?
Stage Bug
Yeah.
or Radial. Um, I don't know.
I was I was just gonna try and find it and drop it in the comments in case anybody looks for it, or
That,
drop it in the description.
that guy right there.
Stage bug.
SB-2 passive. They're made in Canada.
There you go. Well, I see an SB4. Don't know what the difference is,
Probably
except that it's $100.
this guy's. I'm thinking that one might be the powered one.
Uh, I'm seeing them Sweetwater for 90, Reverb used for 75. So, like everything else, seems like they've gone up.
Okay.
But it does. You said that one's specifically for bass, though. isolated DI for bass and keyboards. Okay, I found one, so I'll grab that and I'll make sure to put it in the description so that way if anybody watching ends up deciding they want to get one, they will know what we're talking about.
And so here's the MXR. It's a preamp. So it's going to give you all the good stuff preamp wise, which actually gives you a frequency sweep from 250 all the way to 1K. So you could really pinpoint your mids and the ones you want to boost up, which is awesome for getting heard in the live stream. But it has a direct out, so that works really well. And like I said, it is 9 volt, but it's really small. I mean, it's and it's really pretty good sounding. If you just had that in a tuner, a lot of people like to use a floor tuner because it mutes you, and you could tune on the fly. They're really helpful.
Sure.
I've tried a few cheap ones. I really don't recommend anything under poly. I think it's called a polytune. They seem to be the quietest on stage, and yeah, polytune. And that seems to really help with tuning. And for beginners, what would help me a lot with it is for beginners when you're playing and you're kind of unsure about certain notes still. It's really cool just to be able to look down to see, am I hitting the right note? Oh yeah, I am.
Yeah. Well, and on that same note, like you said about the tuning, it's also good to have that because if you're in between songs, you can just hit that as a kill switch too, so that you don't worry about, oh, did I bump the strings or did I elbow the body or did I smack the headstock into stand?
Can you see the other camera now? No?
Looks like, oh, yeah, there's another one. Let me turn it on. There we go.
And sorry it's so dark, but this is kind of what I work with. Um, this is my box. Sorry. Now we're upside down. Let's try that. We're still upside down. All right. And we're mirrored. Okay. I really recommend this guy right here. It's JHS. It's called a Punchline. They made that. They were asked to make it for a Beatles documentary they were making. And it has so much you can use with it. And it's a DI. And the average bass player could take that anywhere. It has your EQ. It has an amp sim. So basically, it can make you sound like you're using an amp, even though you're not. It's got a drive, on-off drive. So when you need a boost or you need to add a little bit of texture, it has that. And then it's got a compressor on it. And you could turn that on and off also.
Okay.
It's really a fantastic piece of machinery. And I probably don't even know how to use a quarter of it.
That's how I felt whenever I got the microcosm after Lob got one. I got it and I was like, I want to do cool stuff. I can tell you right now that is above my pay grade.
Yeah, right.
Not a
I
freaking
just,
chance.
yeah. So if you're playing in a place where you can't have an amp and you really like the sound of a warm tube amp, something like that is great because you just hit that switch, turn it on, and it just gives you this warm tube amp sound. And it just sounds really good. Something like this also is a really good tool to have. It's just a bass EQ. So you could really pinpoint frequencies that you want to kill or bump up. And if you just want a little bit of extra boost while you're playing certain things, maybe in the chorus, you could just set that thing where you could tap it and just give you some extra boost. Um, that's a really good, really good tool to have. The bass EQ, a preamp, really those two things, and you're good to go. All this other stuff is it's probably better for recording than playing live. Because I find it, I kind of get lost using it live.
Gotcha.
Um, you want to see some of my babies?
We got a couple minutes yet. Why not?
All right. So there's this infamous Z7 natural.
4-string.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got a lost connection screen. All right. So Z7, 4-string. I really like it. I used that this morning.
Do all of these live at your church, or do you take them back and forth?
No, these live here. Probably one of my first real basses right here. Fender Mustang, PJ, Shorty. That's probably my first real bass. My first addiction bass is right here. Rickenbacker, Walnut.
Pretty.
It is. It's gorgeous. Um, let's see. Here's a Sire. This is hard to do. There it is.
Cameras are
Sire.
hard, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sire D5. Can't beat these necks, I'm telling you. For the price, you cannot beat the necks. Um, this is a Fender Custom Shop Empire 58. Right there. That bass right there is just, it could be played anywhere. This is my troubled kid right now.
Mm.
The pickups are way hot on this thing, so I have trouble playing it. This is my custom bite bass.
Hmm.
It's got PJ and then a humbucker at the bottom that could be split to jazz.
Huh.
But they're just so hot. It's like, yeah,
Is it the pickups, or is it active or passive? Do you think it could be the
no,
preamp?
it's passive.
Oh, well, there
It's
you
the
go.
pickup. And that's the thing they pride themselves on is I just need to figure out how to tame it and still keep the sound.
Gotcha.
And then this is a Ultra Jazz, Fender Ultra Jazz right there.
Pretty, pretty.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to go ahead. We're going to call it. It is 6 o'clock. I try to keep these as close to 1 hour as possible. So, again,
Yes.
thank you very much, Dyno, for coming in and giving us that lesson here on the sound checks. Go ahead and however you want to sign off, and then I'll close us out.
Hey, thanks for having me, Travis. This is Dyno Dan, bass man, Dyno Dan smoking. I really hope I get a cook for you guys when you come over here for NAM.
If they don't want you to, you can just cook for me. That's fine.
And I might be able to get you guys I know they talk about renting what is that? They rent a house.
Yeah, I already got it. We're
Oh,
good.
you already got it. Okay,
Yep.
sweet.
Already
Cool.
got one.
So, yeah, this is Dyno Dan. Check me out. I'm a new bass player, and I'm just trying to give people different perspective on my channel, like a new person perspective on bass. So, thanks,
There we
Travis.
go. Absolutely. As always, everybody, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I have been the okayest bassist, and we hope you guys have a wonderful day. Is this where I scream AMP out and change it?